Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to talk about one of my favorite language learning methods, reading books. Many students ask me, how can I learn vocabulary from books? How do you remember new words? Can you improve your grammar through reading? And do you translate every word? The truth is that reading can be one of the most powerful ways to improve your English and grammar if you do it correctly. Today I'm going to share exactly what I do when I read books in a foreign language and how I use them to learn vocabulary, improve my comprehension, writing, grammar, and remember what I've read. Let's begin! Firstly, don't try to learn every single word. The first mistake many language learners and I make is trying to translate everything. When I started reading in English and in foreign languages in general, I thought I had to understand every single word on the page. But that's exhausting and you can read one book for 1 year. Honestly, it takes all the joy out of reading. And now I focus on understanding the main idea. If I understand 80-90% of the text, I keep reading. I only stop when I see a word or expression that seems useful, interesting for me, or appears several times in a text. One of my favorite habits, I use sticky notes. I love stationery, notebooks, and beautiful papers. So this method makes reading much more enjoyable for me. When I read a book, I place sticky notes on important pages. For example, important events, plot twists, memorable quotes, useful expressions that triggers with me, emotional moments which I like. Later, if I want to revisit the book, I can quickly find those pages without searching through hundreds of pages again. And it saves a lot of time. Another thing I do is create reading notes on beautiful vintage style paper. I don't write everything. Instead, I focus on the most important information. I usually write the title of the book, the author, the main characters, important relationships, key events, interesting observations, my personal opinion about the story. And this helps me remember the book long after I finish. And it also turns reading into a more active process. When you write about a story, you engage with it more deeply and you practice writing and thinking actually. When I read in English, I always keep a highlighter nearby. Whenever I find a useful phrase, natural expression, or interesting piece of vocabulary, I highlight it. I don't highlight everything, only expressions that I can imagine using in my real life. So, for example, instead of highlighting rare academic words or just some random words, I focus on phrases like to make up your mind, to get carried away, to be on the same page, to give someone a hand. These are kinds of expressions native speakers actually use. So I can use them in my life too. Why not? After reading, I go back to the highlighted sections and then I write the most useful expression in a notebook. Sometimes I use sticky notes, sometimes I use a dedicated vocabulary journal, but there is something important. I never write just the word. I always write the entire phrase or sentence. So for example, instead of writing exhausted, I write I was completely exhausted after work. So our brains remember language much better in context. And in context, you will know how, when, in which situation you can use this exactly phrase. Many students collect vocabulary but never review it. As a result, they forget most of it. I try to review my notes several times during the week. I try to practice new vocabulary during the lessons. And even 5 minutes a day can make a huge difference. Spaced repetition is one of the most effective ways to move vocabulary into your long-term memory. This is probably my favorite technique. After finishing a chapter, I try to retell it, or I try to discuss what I read with my study buddy. Sometimes I do it aloud, sometimes I write a short summary if I don't have anyone to talk to. Sometimes I imagine I'm explaining the story to a friend, or I actually explaining the story to my friend. This simple exercise improves speaking, vocabulary, memory, comprehension, and writing if you write notes about it. And it immediately shows you what you actually understood. Learning vocabulary is not enough. It's never enough. You need to use it in your life. And whenever I learn a new phrase from a book, I try to create my own examples. I try to create my own sentences. I write sentences about my life, my family, my work, or my daily routine. So I have a personal diary, and I can practice my English in there too. I can write about my life in there too. Another technique I highly recommend is using audiobooks. So it's possible. Listen while reading, or for example, one part you can read, then after you are tired or you are going for a walk, you can listen to this book. This helps you improve pronunciation, connect spelling and sound, understand natural rhythm, intonation. It's especially useful if you're learning English pronunciation. And my final piece of advice: read books that genuinely interest you. Don't choose a book because someone says it's good for learners, someone says it's good for your level. Choose a book because you can't wait to find out what happens next. When you're interested in the story, you'll naturally spend more time with the language, and you would like to come back to it as much as possible. And that's where real progress happens. Reading books has helped me improve every language I've learned. Not only because of vocabulary, but because books expose us to real language, real emotions, and real communication. So if you're learning English, don't just read, highlight, take notes, use sticky notes, write summaries, review vocabulary, listen audiobooks, and most importantly, enjoy the process. Always enjoy the process of learning something new. Because language learning should be something you look forward to, not something you suffer through. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know in the comments, was it useful or not? And please tell me, what book are you currently reading? And what is your favorite way to learn vocabulary from books? See you in the next video.